Got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. Got peace like a river in my soul.
Beautiful. You may be seated. Well, here we are, the middle of August. It's still the month of will. In today's talk, the power of will. As we know, co-founder Charles Fillmore outlaid a divine plan. 12 essential powers to explain what God is and what God is in our lives. And so we turn to Charles Fillmore, and he says, will, the decision-making, directing, choosing, determining faculty of mind. It is our capacity to say yes or no to opportunities and options. The disciple is Matthew, and the location is the front of the brain. Now, the front of the brain is the same as understanding, last month's power. And the disciple for last month's power is Thomas. One thing that's true about will is when it's self-will, will can be a little dangerous. Self-will run riot. But when will is tempered by understanding, it's a safer ground and a good place for our will to be. So Will likes to have the friend understanding to go along for the ride, and the color is silver. Would that be hi-ho silver? And then I thought, is the Lone Ranger a Texas Ranger? I don't know. I didn't get that history class. You'll tell me later. So I turned to Eknath Eastwarren. Eknath Eastwarren was a Fulbright scholar, the founder of the Blue Mountain Center of Meditation, and he says here, the power of desire is the power of the will. Every desire carries with it the will to bring that desire to fruition. If will is strong enough, anything can be accomplished. If will is weak, very little. In my opinion, what counts most in life is not IQ, but WQ, or will quotient. I love this wisdom. Desire is our very nature. Think about a baby, okay? Now, what does a baby want? Wants to be fed, wants to be held, wants to be up, wants to be down, wants to sleep. It's a desire machine. Sometimes the desires are intended want. Sometimes the desire is, I need to be cleaned up. It's need. We have needs and wants. And that's exactly what we are. We are desire machines. We have desires of need and want, and that desire is our power of will. We can make anything happen. And so, what Eastwarren is saying here is how smart you are isn't as important as how strong your will is. So let's see what else we can see about this. I turn to the wisdom of the Upanishads, Hindu wisdom, that says, you are what your deep driving desire is. And as your deep driving desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. And as your deed is, so is your destiny. Simply put, this is what we believe, that what we think creates our experience. Well, what's that thought? That thought is based on our deep driving desire. And from that deep desire, we create whatever it is we're living, whatever we're being. And then from that, all we need to do is look back at what our life is over the past few hours, over the past decade, over our entire life, and there is our destiny. It's the flow of our experience. So this whole idea is not new thought. It's ancient wisdom. And it's good to bring ancient wisdom up to where we can relate to it. How does it relate to our life right now? Well, let's turn back to Eckhart Eastwarren. He continues to say this: the will does not grow weak simply through neglect. We attack it also, usually through absurd little self-indulgences. A bite of this, a drink of that, an unkind word, an unnecessary complaint. And you might say, well, what does it matter? If nothing else, the matter is the will. So our will loses its power when we don't give it what we've decided. And the little tiny self-indulgences weaken our will, weaken our faith in our ability. Now, I have to share with you that about a month and a half ago, I made the decision that I was going to stop going to the refrigerator in the kitchen every day and getting a chocolate chip cookie. My doctor was saying, stay off of the sugar and the carbohydrates because my cholesterol's a little dancing. Now, when I follow and align with that decision, I actually feel good about myself. I'm taking better care of myself. What happens to my will if I go, no one will know if I just go off? It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm feeling kind of weak. I'll go have one chocolate chip cookie. Then what's that going to do to my will? It's going to nibble away at that strength of will. So there's a consequence to whether we're following our decisions and our choices for the highest good for us. Now, I could lay back and go, on my deathbed, am I ever going to be worried about that chocolate chip cookie I stole against my will? Probably not. But I'm going to have a direct impact on my decisions with my will. And that's the matter. The matter is what we're doing for our will. I turn to the wisdom of Mahatma Gandhi that says this so clearly. Strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. As we know, to build up the muscles, we need to do repetition. We need to do it. But guess what? It's so temporary. I was gone for 2 weeks. I get into the pool this week, and all of a sudden, I can't swim more than one length across the pool. And yet, before I went on the trip, I could swim for a half hour, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So our physical capacity is so temporary and fluid. But our will is always with us. And when we center in with that strong will, we can accomplish anything. And then we're bringing into our life, we're creating those deeds, we're honoring ourselves with a conscious choice of will. Because will that's tempered by understanding, we can have something we want. Will that's just self-will sometimes might work out all right, but often my biggest learning opportunities, my biggest potholes in my spiritual path have been my self-will, where I've gone, I'm just going to do it my way because I want to. And boom, learning opportunity. Self-will isn't bad, it's just uncomfortable. And we can turn to our strength of will by feeding our will something that's like trust and respect. Respect, I'm not going to go get a chocolate chip cookie at 3 o'clock, which seems to be my bewitching hour. So yesterday I had an apple. And I think my doctor would approve. I now turn to the poet laureate of Unity, James Dillard Freeman, a wonderful minister. He was head of Dean of Students for many years. He says, at the center of things, there is a harmonious will. This will is life. This will is joy. This will is order. This will is love. So when we center into that divine presence of will within us, it is the harmonizing power within us that's going to guide us for our life, for our joy, for our wholeness, for our sense of being. And isn't that what we want? Do we want more life, more joy, more love in our life? I hope so. Who wants more doom and gloom? I didn't hear anything. Good. Because what's available to us, our free will, we can choose harmonious will or self-will. We can choose in all of our faculties and powers, we can choose the relative choice or the absolute truth choice. And then I turn to the great wisdom of Reverend Mary Kupferle. She was a Unity minister of great power and presence. She wrote several books, and she says this: God's will is good for you and good for me, but it expresses differently for each of us. Wow! Did you ever look at it that way? I hadn't until I read this. It was like, wow! So, yes, we're all one. We're all one in that divine presence. But each one of us is a unique flame. And within that, God's will is working through us just the recipe for us. So the way I do it might not be the way you do it. They might not even be related. The destination is the same, but our operating instructions are going to be a little different. What Myrtle and Charles Fillmore constantly taught is that each of us is a truth student. Each of us must come to our own understanding. And from that understanding is our connection to turning to the will of God. And then when we turn to that, it's going to come to us differently. But it's always going to be for the highest good. Sound good? Yes. I turn to the compassionate Buddha, who said, we punish ourselves just as we reward ourselves by the fruits of our desires. For where our desires are, there our prana is also, our capacity to live, to love, and to enjoy. So we've already established that we're desire machines. That's our nature. And so as a desire machine, we're going to either choose something for our highest good, or we're going to choose something that inevitably gets us not where we want to be. Like if I raid the refrigerator at 3 o'clock, I'm not serving my highest good. There's nothing wrong, essentially wrong with having a chocolate chip cookie, except I've decided that I'm not going to do it every day. This is how we enjoy the fruits of whatever it is we align ourselves with. And that's where our life is. Our prana is going to be intricately connected in our desires and where our will is going. So the Buddha here knows the value of our turning to the highest good we can have. May Rowland was head of Silent Unity for many years. I so wish I met her. I've heard wonderful stories about what an incredibly powerful woman she is. She says this: when we are willing to let God take over, when we surrender self-will, then we will establish something eternal in our consciousness. Our willingness to let God's will be done makes a path for us. This is very telling for our journey. For when we surrender our self-will, which is just a choice, and each of us get to choose it for ourselves. And when we align ourselves with God's will, we're actually dropping into our eternal consciousness. Just like our physical capacity, strength, is temporary and fluid. When we're aligned with God's will and with our consciousness for the highest good for us, that's eternal. It doesn't change because God never changes. And guess what? We're not changing God, we're changing ourselves. And with this, we then align in a path where we open to God's will. And what is God's will for us? Now, we have many, many brothers and sisters in various 12-step programs. And the third step in 12-step programs is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So this is, in a spiritual tradition of the 12 steps, this is integral. We need to make a choice to turn our will and our lives over to God. Now, along with this third step in Alcoholics Anonymous, there is the third step prayer. I love this prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. This is profound wisdom, to come to a place where we're willing to turn our will over to God's will. And the best way we can do that is in meditation. So let's take some time now to drop into meditation. But first, we allow the unity singers to bring us into that frequency of presence now.
Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya. Shivaya Namo, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namo, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namo, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namo, Shivaya Namaha, Namaha Shivaya.
Yes. Yes, we come to this moment. Free will is ours to choose. And if you choose with me, we choose to let go our bondage of self and to align ourselves with the presence of God's will. At any point, we're free to unchoose that. It's always available to us, and God is always present. as we breathe deeply into this now moment, if we want peace, let's open our hearts to God's peace. If we want love, let's open ourselves to God's love. If we want health, let's open ourselves to God's health. Anything we want, forgiveness, grace, understanding, is all available to us through God. And as we settle in to this moment, we identify that it is ours to open up to what's God's will for us. What path, what step do I take today to enliven this path? And so we take this moment and set down everything that's come before now. And we set down everything that is to be, everything that we plan to do today or tomorrow or any time in the future. We just set them down. And then we can realize the presence now. And so let's take a moment in the silence and allow peace be still to guide us to the wisdom that lies within us as we listen in the silence. Yes. We allow this peace that passes all understanding to be the foundation of all we say, do, and be this day. And if we choose, we can align with God's guidance and clarity for all that we do. And we are grateful for our ever-increasing awareness of our oneness with God. And so we bring this meditation to a close, and with that we might wiggle our fingers or wiggle our toes or roll our heads and breathe easily. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes, and then together will say this affirmation for today. Together. Today, I allow God's will to guide me, and so it is.
Lead your faith. Step out on the water. Lead your faith. Every step is strong.